Good evening, friends. Critical medical supplies from Houston now being used to help the earthquake victims in Mexico City. A Mercy flight arrived early this morning. Reporter Van Hackett was on board and has the story of that emergency flight, as well as the continued attempts to rescue the victims from the damaged or collapsed building.
Supplies were loaded into containers Sunday afternoon at the Continental Air Freight Building. They included syringes, needles, and medication collected by the Greater Houston Hospital Council, as well as IV solutions and even bedpans. Rescue equipment for the ICA company in Mexico City also was packed. When the Continental DC-10 arrived with supplies raised in Denver, the Houston equipment was loaded aboard. The flight to Mexico City took 2 hours, and when the plane landed, there was unsettling news. Some of the medical supplies were not on the flight manifest.
We've had a manifest problem with some of the Red Cross equipment that was also on the flight. All of the equipment that originated in Houston that we were responsible for was manifested. We've turned in that equipment manifest, and we're now going to just remove all that from the airplane, and all that's left will be material that will go directly to the Red Cross.
Only a brief look around the older sections of Mexico City points up the need for many of the supplies brought in from Houston. This street-side temporary clinic is giving residents tetanus shots and tending to other minor medical needs. At this collapsed building and hundreds of others like it, the saws, generators, and portable lights shipped from Houston can be put to work. This is day 5 for victims trapped in the rubble of the Nueva Leon condominiums. 5 days without food or water. For friends and relatives, it is 5 days without word from or of their loved ones. For rescue workers, it is days and nights of exhaustion. A man on a public address system calls for new volunteers. Slowly, the calls for help are heeded as a new platoon of workers forms. The need for the heavy equipment which was unloaded from the plane earlier today was underscored very dramatically and poignantly just a few moments ago. A man came up to us and said that they had just found 3 victims still buried alive in that rubble. But he said he needed 2 100-ton cranes to reach them and rescue them. Images on a low-light miniature TV camera the U.S. Interior's Division of Surface Mining has been operating here since last Friday. And voices. Debris is removed painstakingly, bucket by bucket, block by block. And so it has gone for 5 days. Van Hackett, Eyewitness News, Mexico City.
While relief supplies continue to pour into Mexico, the loading of additional supplies continues in Houston. Leslie Brinkley's been following that operation today. She is at Intercontinental Airport now to give us the latest. Leslie.
Dave, there's a jet behind me. Earlier today, a jet took off with supplies for Mexico City just about 1 hour ago. Behind me are boxes of donations from Houstonians. The boxes are all labeled Niños for babies' clothes and so on. And these boxes will be en route to Mexico City as soon as there is room on another flight. Boxes have been flying in from the rest of the country as well, and Continental officials tell me that the city that's mustered the most support besides Houston has been Wichita, Kansas for some reason. These boxes are on their way to Mexico, and doing what we did today, traveling to the different agencies in Houston, it's amazing to see the magnitude of all of the donations that Houstonians have made. And beyond that magnitude, it's also very hard to imagine how all of these goods will be transported to Mexico. An estimated 50 tons of clothes and food and medical supplies are being stored in this nightclub. Tonight, 4 or 5 trucks will be loaded and bound for Mexico City with all of these boxes on board, which were collected by just one radio station, KXYZ. And there's more, so much more. Close to $150,000 in aid collected by Houston's Catholic churches yesterday. 6 truckloads of food and supplies gathered by Fiesta Food Marts and KLVL. Fiesta will also send 2 trucks loaded with a very precious commodity, distilled water. And then there's the Red Cross. After fielding thousands of phone calls and letters, the money is still pouring in.
At this point, with the mail this morning, we have more than $12,000 in contributions for medical supplies for the earthquake victims in Mexico.
Those victims are receiving a lot of this Houston aid via the airlines. Continental airlifted 30,000 pounds of medical supplies early this morning, and they continue to fill their cargo bays with emergency supplies on 4 daily flights to Mexico City.
Last night, Continental left Houston at 2 a.m. on its relief mission to Mexico City. And we found when we arrived in Mexico City that the authorities there were fairly well prepared to accept the medical supplies and the rescue equipment that we had brought with us.
Today, Continental began accepting shipments of clothing and food donated by Houston YMCAs and other agencies.
We did indeed find in Mexico City that the officials there were de-emphasizing at this time the need for food and clothing. They still do need the medical supplies as far as we could tell.
We found in talking to Continental officials today that there is a little bit of a refueling problem as the planes fly into Mexico City. The last word we had, and it has been changing, is that they still cannot refuel the planes, which means there's less room in the cargo bays. But they are filling up the planes with as many of these boxes as they can, and they are heading down to Mexico. I might also add that Continental has said they are so overwhelmed with cargo of this sort for Mexico that it's impossible for them to move it all. Not only from Houston again, but other cities, and they are trying as much as they can to get it out here as quickly as they can, medical supplies being the top priority. I also might add in our talking with various people today that the earthquake was certainly a tragedy, but in looking and talking to the Houstonians, it's amazing the support they've put together, and it really leaves you with a rather good feeling.
Leslie, what will they do with the supplies they can't transport?
Right now, they're being optimistic, and they are working with other airlines. KLM and Air France have also pitched in with Continental to fill up the leftover cargo space with these boxes for Mexico victims, and they will continue to do that sort of thing. What Continental was saying is bum space off other airlines to get these goods to Mexico. So the word they give us is it'll get there.
Very good. Okay. Thank you, Leslie.